All right, we're going to get started. So, welcome to Show Me How to Teletherapy. This here is a webinar that has been put together as a follow-up from my first webinar, which was an introduction to teletherapy. So, let's talk about me for a second and who I am. If you were at the last webinar, you'll know this already. I'm Brooke Dibley. I'm based in Pukekohe in Auckland. I have been a speech therapist for 7 years. I've been in private practice for 3 years, and I've been doing teletherapy for 2 years. Currently, half my caseload is teletherapy, and the other half is in-person sessions that are contracted through the HCN program under Oranga Tamariki. And I also am a store owner and blogger under the same name of Simply Speaking SLT. Over at Simply Speaking SLT, I create and also teach people. I create teletherapy resources, but also teach people about doing teletherapy and also about using digital resources in traditional sessions on things like iPads and tablets and things. So if you want to connect with me in that way, there's my Instagram, my Facebook, and my blog here, and my email. So on Instagram and Facebook, at the moment in this current season, I'm sharing daily new tips and ideas for teletherapy, and then my blog is more static and I add to it when I have time. Okay, so that's who I am. And how I got into teletherapy is that because I started making the digital resources that I sell online, I was making them to use on my iPad. So when that happened, just a moment, someone's camera's on. Can everyone please turn their video feeds off and turn their microphones off? Thank you. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I started creating digital resources to sell online 3 years ago, and I made a lot of things you can use on your iPad, and then I was reached out to by a bunch of teletherapists telling me they were using my therapy materials, and it was a whole new world, and I learned all about it and realized how amazing it is, and realized it's something I wanted to incorporate into my private practice. And it's been 2 years of learning and starting from the ground up. And I'm so excited to say that yesterday the NZSTA launched their telehealth guidelines, which is something that I've been waiting for a really long time, and I'm really excited to be a part of that team that's advising on that. And so yeah, I think that telehealth is something that is really relevant to us as a country, even outside of COVID-19. So I'm really excited that you're all here to learn more about this thing that's a big part of my life. Okay, have you prepared? So if you haven't watched the last webinar, and you also haven't watched my teletherapy YouTube video, which is the demo where I show you GoToMeeting, it probably would be best that you go watch that first, especially the first webinar, just because in this here, we are going a bit deeper, and it would be helpful if you have that base knowledge from webinar 1. So I've linked to that in the notes that you can download from the event on the Facebook page. So I will be recording this. So if you do want to go hop off and go watch that instead, you can always watch the recording that should be up on the Facebook page tomorrow. But hopefully you've all prepared. Yay. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to go through today. We're going to talk about understanding your teletherapy platform. We're going to be talking about session planning considerations, how to use what you have, how to create teletherapy materials and materials that you can use in therapy, and how to find teletherapy materials online. It doesn't, for those of you who have your camera feed on, it doesn't matter in the sense of privacy because I don't have your camera feeds showing up in my recording, but just know that we can see you. Okay. All right, let's talk about understanding your teletherapy platform. Oh, and if you do want to turn off your camera, just look for the camera icon. It'll be green and it should be down the bottom, and you can just hit that and turn your camera feed off. Okay, understanding your teletherapy platform. All right, these are some things you really should learn about your platform before your first session, the platform being the video conferencing software you're choosing to use for teletherapy. So I've demonstrated for you guys GoToMeeting in the video I had you watch before this, but you don't have to use GoToMeeting. However, I do highly recommend either GoToMeeting or Zoom. And I talk about that a lot in the first webinar. All the other ones that are in that webinar, just from my experience, from trying most of them, from talking to people in this season right now, everyone's trying everything. A lot of them are crashing because they're not used to the type of traffic that they have right now. A lot of them are owned by small companies, which is awesome and great to support them, but they don't have the infrastructure to support what's going on right now, this huge influx of telehealth. So that's my personal opinion. That's not endorsed by anyone in particular. That's just my personal opinion as a therapist who's tried them all. Okay. So you need to understand how to invite your student to your session. Now, when I go through this list, guys, if there's something on here that you don't know for the platform you're choosing, I can't help everyone learn everything on their platform. These platforms all have amazing help desk websites where you can just Google how to do this and in Zoom or in GoToMeeting or whichever platform you're using, and the answers will come up. Also, if you're using GoToMeeting, I cover all of this in my demonstration video. So how to invite the student to your session, what device will your student be using, and what restrictions that means for your platform. So on some platforms, if they're on an iPad, or on all platforms, if they're on an iPad, they won't be able to interact with your screen, which is fine. You can still screen share. Except for on Zoom, there's some fancy settings that I don't know about, but so that they could interact with your iPad, but there is information about that out there that you could find, but most of us don't use our iPads in speech therapy, unless you have an app that the kids really love, and then you can screen share and mirror your iPad using Reflector 3, and I talk about that in the last webinar. How to resize and change your camera view so that you can resize it so that you're really big or your student's really big, and you need to understand it from your point of view and from the kid's point of view, so that you can help them make sure that your camera feed's really big and that they're sitting beside you in the view or above you in the view, and that you they're not really tiny, because it's really nice for them to be able to see themselves, especially when working on speech, because it acts like a mirror. How to give mouse and keyboard controls. Actually, first know how to share your screen and how to then stop sharing it. So screen sharing, I would say, especially with our pediatric population, is essential. You need to be able to share your screen, which is all I'm doing right now, because then anything you can bring up on your computer, you can use in therapy. And I'm just sharing my entire window with you right now, and that's what you're seeing. So being able to share your screen and stop sharing your screen quickly, because if you want to be able to take away the materials and just have your camera feeds next to each other, so that you and your student can be nice and big on their screen, and you can just practice your speech targets, for example, or you need to take away distractions, then you want to be able to quickly stop sharing your screen and then quickly start sharing it again if you're moving through to the next activity. Giving mouse and keyboard controls is like the icing on the cake. So you want to be able to screen share, but if you can give mouse and keyboard controls, it's a nice bonus. And that is so that if you have something on your screen, the students can interact with it. However, if they can't interact with it, that's not the end of the world. A bunch of platforms, you can't interact with it, and you just use your creativity to still make it fun and interactive, and they tell you what you want them to do. Okay. You need to think about and practice with a friend or something, where does the child's camera feed go when you share your screen? Okay, I'm saying child, guys, because that's what I know, but of course, if you work with adults, it's the same thing. If where does their camera feed go when you share your screen? Because on some platforms, not GoToMeeting or Zoom, but on others, you totally lose them. And so you need to be really creative in sharing just the window and not your screen. And so now what I can tell you is in Zoom and GoToMeeting, you will be able to see their feed, and you will be able to resize their feed, their camera feed, and so can your students. So that's something to say, but like I said, you can choose your own platform and what meets your needs. How to check that your mic and your camera are on, nice and good and basic, and how to split screen on your computer. So being able to split screen is the idea that you can put one document over to one side and then open up something else on the other side, like I have here. I have my slideshow in edit mode here, but here's my actual PDF document. So it's the idea that you split two things across your screen. It just makes your life, sorry guys, now I've got to bring this back. It just makes your life so much easier to be able to do that. you can display multiple things at one time if your child can handle that, and it means you don't have to keep toggling through different windows. Now, how to split screen is not something you need to learn from your platform, it's what you need to learn from your computer. So if you've got a Windows computer, there are quick keys that you can use that I just use, and if you're on a Mac, there's different ways. So just Google how to split screen on a Mac or on Windows 10 if you're using Windows 10. Okay, so in the notes, I've linked to my tutorial video for GoToMeeting, and then I've linked to this Zoom tutorial here. Now, this is not free. This is 15 American dollars, but this guy really seems to know his stuff. Him and his wife own a teletherapy private practice in America, and he's been putting out really awesome content. So I'd rather send you guys to a place where I know the content is reliable and he's going to answer all your teletherapy specific questions. However, of course, go online, go to YouTube if you want to look up a Zoom tutorial and things like that. But I have put this here as an option for you. I'm not affiliated with him, but if you click there, it takes you to the page where you can see a demonstration of the video, like kind of a little sample of what's included in the video and some timestamps to show all the things he covers if you are using Zoom. Okay, supporting your students and your families. Now, all those things that you just had to understand about your platform, for some of your students, and some of these features, your students and your parents may also need to understand them. How to resize the camera feed, how to change the view so that you're beside each other, how to find you again when you're screen sharing, which not too much of a problem with Zoom or GoToMeeting, but with others it can be. So I really encourage you to consider a free tech setup session, or if you're not private, if anyone watching this is not private, then obviously talking to your management about providing a tech setup session. It doesn't have to be as long as a normal session. Some parents are going to take longer than others. Some are used to conference calls for their job and it will take 5 minutes, and others are going to need like half an hour. You need to be able to work with your parents where they're at, but it's highly worth it to stop all the tech issues from happening when you're trying to do therapy. 99% of the issues that you have do have a solution, and don't be afraid to call the helplines for your platforms. Both Zoom and GoToMeeting have really good helplines. There is a wait right now, but they're really helpful once you get there. But also it's all on their website and can help you. Have screenshots ready of the buttons that you want them to use. So obviously I'm sharing my screen with you right now, but what you don't see is all the GoToMeeting buttons I have access to right now, because GoToMeeting is only sharing my PowerPoint show. So what you need to maybe have on hand is just some quick screenshots using your snipping tool on your computer. If you're on a Windows, just search snip in your menu in Windows and you'll find it. And then I'm sure there's a way to screen grab on a Mac, and so you have the picture on your screen, and then on your computer. And then if you're thinking, I don't think this parent gets what I'm saying, you can just quickly go into screen share mode and open the image and say, this is the picture that the button you're looking for. So consider sending an email to the parents before the session, just to know the kind of system requirements they need. Set up, I'd like, please pick a quiet space. Please make sure you've got headphones if you want them to use those. Please make sure your child is seated. Like all the kind of things that you can think through that could be an issue, just to kind of combat some of those while they're happening, before they happen. Okay, and also consider which browser and software that your students have access to. So one thing to consider, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last webinar, but if your students are using Chromebooks from school or devices from school that their teachers or their parents have put a lot of firewalls on, it might mean that they're not able to download the software that's needed for them to be in your session. And so you need to work with the family around troubleshooting that. We would hope that the schools will be very quick at giving you access to being able to install that software. It's something that people are more coming up with who are using those browser-based things, because if they're not Chromebooks, a lot of them don't have Chrome on their computer, and you need to download Chrome to be able to work in the browser. But the same is to be said for Zoom and GoToMeeting on a computer, because you need to be able to download the app before the session so you can be in the session. So that's just something to think about. Okay, I have a I don't. Stacey Krause has a troubleshooting handout, but I've linked it in here. It's really great to send to parents, and you might find it helpful as well. Okay, all right. Remember, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box. And sorry if you can hear me sipping water, trying to protect my voice. Okay, so some session planning considerations. All right, environment and setup considerations for you as the therapist. You need to consider lighting and audio. Have a drink of water with you. You're going to be talking a lot. Allow time for bathroom breaks, guys, because I've noticed a lot of clinicians on social media talking about how tired and exhausted they are. Allow yourself time to get up and walk around between sessions, go to the bathroom and eat. Just think about those things. You're not chained to your chair. Have some space between your clients. The prep time, once you start doing this, the prep time for teletherapy for me personally is a lot quicker than in-person therapy. And so therefore I can afford to have gaps because I haven't spent all that time in the morning prepping. So that's just something to consider. And also consider an ergonomic setup if it's possible for you right now. However, I understand you may have been thrown into this. So just do the best you can. Try and have a high back chair behind you. Consider where your webcam is, where you're looking, all those kind of things. Consider your mouse placement. I'm sure a lot of us know OTs that you could give a ring and they can help you. Also, another thing that you can consider doing if the screen's really hurting your eyes is considering putting your screen brightness down a little bit. Because some people have their screen brightness up really high, especially if you've got a big monitor like I do. I have 2 huge monitors and I had to turn mine down because they were just really bright. And have snacks around you because you will probably forget to go eat. You might not, but I definitely have that happen where I'm just like in the zone, moving from one session to the other. And when I was doing traditional therapy, of course, I'm driving between clients so I can snack in the car. But here you can, finish your session, open your notes, write them, and then go to the next one very seamlessly without ever going past the kitchen. So having snacks around you is very good to eat during session, in the middle of, between your clients. Okay. So some other things you need to think about when you're planning your sessions is what device will your student be using, and therefore, so if you know that your student's using an iPad, you might want to consider the fact that they're not going to be able to control your screen when you're picking your activities. Just choose a few games and activities for the entire day. I still write out paper plans for each session, just a quick jot down. And we're used to having to adapt things to meet goals, and you can do that too. One thing that really helps is organizing all your files on your computer to be organized by either I organize mine by targets or by goals, and then also each student has a file on my computer. So if there's a game I know they really like, I might copy it over into their file, but I'm not going to make copies of all my games into every single file because that will get really big. But do consider you don't need to have everything open on your computer before the session starts. So if you think, I might use these 2 websites, I might use these 2 PDFs and these 2 PowerPoint games today, you don't have them all open because it's going to slow down your computer and it's going to slow down your screen share. Just open things up as it's time to open them, and it's okay. Just talk through what you're doing. You wouldn't apologize for taking ages to get Pop-Up Pirate out of your bag in a normal session. So it's the same, just talk through it. I've heard some people recommend saying like, okay, we've finished this, while I bring up the next game, why don't you tell me about your day? What did you have for breakfast? Let's practice that sound again. It's okay. You don't need to be apologetic about it taking time because it takes time to transition activities in person as well. Some things to think about is open-ended games are sometimes really good as well. I sell a lot of open-ended games. abc.com has some great free open-ended games. And another thing to consider, guys, you don't have to use digital materials. If you are someone where this is just too much for you right now, all these digital materials, you can just not even ever share your screen and just do a session in video conference mode and have things around you. And we'll talk about that a bit more later on, in the section where we talk about how to use what you have. All right, ways to display your targets. Just so you guys know, I'm going to be doing some demonstration at the end of this webinar. I'm just going to go through my slides first. Okay, so if you have hard copy cards, if we think about targets, it might be I use this term loosely. It might be speech targets. It might be a worksheet that has the goal-based questions on it. It might, you know how you have those goals where you just need stimuli, you need your targets, and then there's other goals which you work on in play. I'm talking about, but what about those targets I always have in my bag? So you can choose to just present your hard copy cards or targets. I wouldn't do this with a worksheet, but if you have, like flashcards that you want to show a student, and you can just show it to the camera, but please think about your placement. Where are you putting the card? Don't put it over your mouth if you're wanting to cue for placement. Think about how big your camera feed is for that student. Make sure you're not screen sharing at the same time, because you do get smaller when you're screen sharing. So I like to do that in just view mode where we're both beside each other. But there's no reason why you can't do that, especially if they're visual cue cards that your students are really used to, and they've come to really like them and recognize them and know them. You can also grab your PDF printables with another way that you can display your targets is with PDFs, printables, and cards and worksheets. So some of you may have on your computer cards that you would typically print, worksheets you would typically print, those kind of things, and just bring them up in Adobe Acrobat Reader, and we'll talk about in a moment how to do that, and you're able to annotate on top of them. Or you may just want to bring up the printable of the picture cards that you normally would print and cut up, and instead just have the grid on the page. Okay, then there's also interactive flashcards and worksheets. So I have some, there's a bunch of them on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can make boom cards, interactive PDFs. So there's lots of those types of things as well that have been made for teletherapy. So it's one card on each page and you can just flick through them. Some of them have interactive tick boxes. So that's kind of moving away from using what you may already have. But if you do want to go grab some other stuff, they are out there. I also have interactive spinners that you can show your targets on. So they spin for their speech sound, or they spin for their synonym or their homonym or their verb. So I have lots of those, which are in my store and linked there. You can also, obviously, present your targets during an activity that's been made to include the target. So for example, my speciality is creating PowerPoint games that have the targets built in, or that provide a way for you to play them with speech targets, and encourage over 100 speech repetitions. So that is where the entire activity has been made to include your targets, and you can play the game as well, and it's all in one. And that's a lot of what you'll find on Teachers Pay Teachers as well, and find online if it's been made specifically for teletherapy for speech therapists. Then also consider what's in your child's home and what is around you when it comes to what you're working on. So if you're working on prepositions, do you have a pen and a cup, and you can just kind of talk about like we would normally, putting things in and putting things beside, and then asking the parent to grab the kid a cup and a pen, and they can do it too. So there's no reason why you can't grab what's in the child's home, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. I personally mostly use games with targets built in, like I talked about before, because of course I make them, so I have a lot of them. Or I use an open-ended game, like something on ABC, a colouring game online, or it might be something like a board game that's online, and I will split screen it with my targets, so that the game's on one side of my screen, and on the other side of my screen is a PDF. Generally, it's my interactive PDFs, but it could just be your worksheet or your or something like that, your printable cards that you've brought up in Adobe. They're right beside each other, and so we can have turn playing the game, and then we say our targets, or we do a part of the worksheet, and then we can do more of the game. So that's kind of representing kind of how I would do in-person therapy too. The open-ended games sometimes a reinforcer, and other times it's a part of the actual goal targeting. I hope that makes sense. Okay, how to use what you have. Remember, you can put questions in the chat box if you have any. Okay, let's talk about how you can use your hard copy printables, because I know a lot of you have hard copy printables that aren't digital, they're in books, or they're actually printed worksheets that you own. So what you can do is you can scan them in as a PDF, then open them in Adobe Acrobat Reader, which is free, and then annotate on top of them, which I'm going to show you how to do. When we get to the demonstration part, I'm going to go through all of that. But if you don't have a scanner, I don't have a scanner, you can take a photo with your phone, you can crop it, or either on your phone or on your computer, and then you print to PDF. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And then once you've printed to PDF, it's created a new PDF file and you can write on top of it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You can also get scanner apps for your phone where you just take a photo of the book page or the worksheet, and then it sends it to then email it to yourself as a PDF as well. So PDFs are the easiest file format to use if you want to just like be able to annotate and fill in a worksheet with text boxes and highlighting and circles and shapes and things like that. Do remember, save a master base copy because if your child in a session has annotated all over your worksheet and then you accidentally save it, you've saved all those annotations on top. So make sure you have a master somewhere, and then make a copy like you would if you were copying in real life. You can also choose to use your hard copy printables by showing them to the camera, like we talked about already. Not always appropriate for things like involved worksheets, but fine for flashcards. And also check that you don't have a digital copy. You may actually have been emailed or downloaded at some point the digital copy of these worksheets, but because you really like to photocopy, you've printed off masters, you've made copies, and now you go make copies every time you want to use them. You may actually have the digital copy somewhere, whether it be on your computer, on a disk drive, something like that. Okay? Sorry guys, okay. Using toys and manipulatives. So like I said, you can use like what you have around you and what you would normally use. So you can still use books and read them to your students. You can still use your toys and manipulatives. Sound making toys are really great, but consider your webcam position. So I would never use a spinning top in teletherapy, because that's just in the too hard basket of showing them my table, because it has to spin on the table. But those fun buttons that make fun noises, I've got some that make fart noises, those kind of things, kids love those. If they've got Lego at their house and they really love Lego, there's no reason why you can't use it as a reinforcer. If they probably have playing cards and you probably have playing cards, you probably have slime or Play-Doh and they probably do too, you probably have coloring supplies and so do they, and you both probably have a dice. So you can just think about these things and just have the parent prepare beforehand that you're going to use them so that they're not looking all around the house for them, and you can still interact together and show each other what you're doing without it having to be fully digital, and you're just in video mode having a video call. And you can just get them to grab whatever they're loving right now and tell you about it and use it as a reinforcer. Music and dancing is also great. You can, I often will play music from my phone and just hold it up to the microphone from Spotify, and we have a little dance party and a giggle, be a little bit silly and funny. So you can still use your toys and your manipulatives that you like. Just consider integrating them you just have to be a little creative really in how you use them. Okay, so that's how to use what you have. I know I moved through this quickly. A lot of this stuff I've linked to tutorials that go in more depth for you about how to actually do the things that I told you can do, because I don't really have the capacity right now to show you all the little technical side of things. This is more an overview about teletherapy and giving you guys a base to jump off, and then you can go Google because you're all at different tech levels. So I don't want to spend a lot of time teaching half of you how to do something you already know how to do. So but do reach out to me if you can't find the answers online. Okay. So making materials that you can use in therapy. So I'm going to caveat this to say, the really fun, pretty, interactive, robust, extremely large files of beautiful interactive games and activities that you will find online on places such as Teachers Pay Teachers, they've taken that person hours, sometimes months, and a lot of training, and the technological skills to make those is really high level. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to make those types of activities. They're really great to have. They're interactive and fun and engaging, but you can make your own, just like with the skills you already have, just like you would if you chose to make your own materials right now. So for example, if you have Boardmaker and I'm pretty sure you can export your Boardmaker activities to PDF and then bring them up in Adobe Acrobat Reader, like I've talked about before. I showed you in the last webinar how to do that and play play it as a board game if you've made board games in Adobe Acrobat Reader, those kind of things. So, but a few fun digital things I'll just show you and talk to you about, and I'm going to demonstrate a lot of these for you in a moment. One thing to think about is you can export most documents to a PDF. So if you're in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Google Slides, Google Docs, you can pretty much most of them you can export as a PDF. You just have to look for the export button or the save as button or the save a copy button, and then in the drop down pick PDF as your file option. So once something's a PDF, you can bring it into Adobe Acrobat Reader and you can annotate on top of it. Also, I talked about lesson picks a bit in the last webinar, and I'm going to talk about it more today as I demo. It really is such an amazing way to create resources, and they technically make printables, but they all come out as PDFs, and you can adapt those easily in Adobe Acrobat Reader. They've got all of the clip art already there. It's all organized by phoneme. If you want to do phonemes, it's all organized by category type. They've got all the kind of clip art you would need for visual schedules, behavior management, I'm working for charts. Like I'll show you in a minute, there's just so much you can do with lesson picks, and it all exports as a PDF. Google Slides is great for movable pieces, because if you have a picture in Google Slides and then you add in a shape like a circle, well, your student, if they have mouse controls, can now move that circle. So there are some really fun and creative ways you can do that. Things like Google Slides and PowerPoint, think of them like a blank canvas, like a blank piece of paper that you can use in your session. So you can insert a text box and quickly type something. You can insert shapes, you can insert pictures, in Google Slides, you can insert videos. And there's no reason why you and your students couldn't even make them together. That's really fun. And then export them and send them home. And by send them home, I mean email them home, so that they can have them maybe to practice in. So we'll have a lot of look at Google Slides today. If it's something you're not super confident with, and it's something that just seems way too far away from grasping, then it's not necessarily an essential thing you need to know how to do. But it is pretty cool just to know that it's an option. And everything I've said about Google Slides is the same for PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a desktop-based version that a lot of us have to pay for, whereas Google Slides is free. So I personally use PowerPoint, but because I know I'm presenting right now to a bunch of people with a bunch of different software on their computer, I'd rather talk about Google Slides, because Google Slides everyone can access for free. You just need a Google account, which is also free, like a Gmail account. Google Forms is really awesome. You can make interactive worksheets. You can embed images and videos, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you can share the link with parents. So then whatever when they're finished, they can submit it and it'll get sent back to you. You can also obviously fill in the worksheets together in your session, and they're not just like a question and answer type worksheet. They've got the ability to put in a bunch of media too, which is really great. Now, boom cards. Boom Learning and Boom Cards I talked about last time. They're really great. Creating them is a learning curve. And so if you are all into that and you want in, go for it. Go create your own. You need an ultimate membership to be able to create them. And right now that's free. With all the COVID-19 stuff going on, they've got that on free. So you can sign up and create. Please. Oh, there's a typo. Sorry, guys. As you can probably imagine, this is an extremely busy time for me. And so I'm a little tired. Okay, so ignore my typos. So it's okay to use Google Images and Google Fonts and built-in things in your resources if they're for personal use. But please know you can't just go and sell those things, especially because in Boom, they make it really easy to sell your Boom card decks. You can't just go and sell it because you made it. You have to use you have to consider terms of use. You have to use commercial use fonts, commercial use clip arts. There's just a lot more involved. So I just want to put that out there. And yeah, I just wrote there again that all those fancy interactive resources that you see on TPT, they take a long time in training to create. So give yourself some grace. I'm not saying you should go and create all those kind of things to use in your therapy session, but just know that you can use the things you're used to using as well, like worksheets, as long as you export them as PDFs. Okay, so we've got one more thing to talk through before I start demonstrating. So after this section, I will be having time for questions before I demonstrate. So please make sure you put your questions in the chat box. The slide is from our last webinar. I just want to go over it again quickly. The types of materials that you can use in your session. And so these are the different types that you might go looking for online if you're not going to make your own. Static PDFs. So they would be your general PDFs that are normally printed. So you might know that someone has this really awesome set of articulation worksheets and you're like, yeah, I want to do those in session. So you buy or get them for free, and then you can open them up in Adobe Acrobat Reader and you can annotate them. Interactive PDFs are where they've been created by the designer to have form fields like text boxes and check boxes so that you can fill in the it's kind of like a digital worksheet that's very colorful and graphically pleasing because it's not going to be printed, so they can put in all that fun colorful stuff that you wouldn't normally want to print. Boom cards, we've talked about a bit. Boom cards, those interactive cards that you can, that have a lot of drag and drop. They're normally self-checking. PowerPoint games, which are my expertise, are really great and fun and interactive. So I really love those. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I really like them. So this picture here is an example of one of my PowerPoint games. It's really open-ended and great for getting in 100 speech repetitions because of the way that I've formatted it. Google Slides we've talked about, videos, whether it be from YouTube or somewhere else, ebooks, we talked about that a bit in my last webinar. I also have a blog post that I linked in the last webinar's notes and also in these notes about where to find free ebooks you can use in teletherapy. Online games, I linked to abcia.com in the last one. Toy Theatre has some. There's a bunch of online games. I mean, if any of you have kids, your kids probably could tell you where to get great online games too, and online manipulatives like online dice, online spinner, online shape blocks. There's lots of different things. A good place to look for those is Toy Theatre, and I talked about that in the last webinar. And online whiteboards. I don't use them much, but they exist. Okay, finding materials. So places you can find them in my store. Teachers Pay Teachers have a bunch. The search terms you want to use are no print or teletherapy, or no print teletherapy. Digital is another good search term. I'm going to show you in my demonstration about how to filter the results on Teachers Pay Teachers so you can find things that are going to be teletherapy ready. Obviously Googling things like Googling websites and games and online games. And that will help you find children's websites, online game websites. Obviously you can search on YouTube, and then there's also SLP bloggers and SLP websites, which also have some materials on them that you can normally download or maybe integrated into the site so that you can just screen share the website and not have to download them. Remember, any website that you can find is now a material because you just share your screen. So you can just share your screen and you're now doing therapy. So just think about that as well. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to look if we have any questions over in the chat box. No, we don't at the moment. All right, thanks for sticking with me, guys. All right, but if you think of any questions, pop them in there. Okay, let's demo. I put a question mark there because I wanted to keep track of time, but we're doing good for time, actually. So, all right, I'm going to change windows. Let me just check what I wanted to show you first. Okay, let's first look at... Okay, so let's look at this. Oops, sorry, guys. I just need to... Okay, so this here is a photo that I took with my phone of a resource from a book. It's a worksheet. I don't actually use this book. I just found it around my house. So this is just a quick photo I took with my phone, and then I've got this just open on Windows, but if you're on a Mac, there'll be something very similar when you open a photo where you can crop it. So I'm just going to pop the bottom off because you can see the shadow from my phone and we don't really need it. And then I'm just going to save that. Okay. So I have a photo though. So how am I going to annotate on top of this? Because it needs to be a PDF. Well, all you do is you print it. So there'll be a way that you can print photos on your computer. You might be thinking, what? You print it? Just bear with me. So I'm going to right click and hit print for this because this is how my system works. And I'm going to choose, see up here how I can choose my printer. I'm going to choose Microsoft Print to PDF. Most of your computers will have that. If it's a Mac, it should have a Mac version. And then you can choose your size if you want and just check these things and then go print. And I'm going to, actually, I'll replace that one because I had already done this before. All right, now let's have a look what happened. I have Adobe Acrobat Reader set as my default PDF reader. So this is opened, but as you can see, it's way too big and blurry and annoying. So I'm just going to go over here and hit fit one full page. Now we can see the whole thing. Okay, obviously, guys, this is the most like basic way you would want to present a worksheet. This is not like the creme de la creme amazingness, but it works. Like, it works. So I just want to show you that you can do this if you have worksheets that you really like that are hard copy. And then what I'm going to do is hit this comment button here because I don't have any annotation tools yet. So I'm going to hit comment. And now we've got this bar come up here. Did you see that popped up? Also, just so you know, you can, if this annoying bar comes up, you can just pop it in. This is what I showed you in the last webinar, but I just want to go over this again. So this worksheet here, you have to put a number over here, but you could be creative. So if you want something a little more interactive for your students, you could put in a circle, and then you can over here change the fill. I'm going to do like no fill and make the opacity like that, and the border I'm going to make, oh, have I lost my border too? Okay, I'm not sure how to get rid of the fill. I used to know how. I'm sure there's a way, but fill color, no color, there we go. Look, we're learning together. Okay, so you might, you know, the student might pick their favorite color, and then you might copy this a few times, pop it up here. I'm just going to grab it and move it, and then you just say, like, you can just type. You could put in a text box. So there's text boxes here that you can add in to type in the space. You could obviously use the pen tool to write in the number, but I'm just showing you like a little like extra interactive thing that your students might like to do. And you might say, okay, now put a circle on the answer, and then they can just put their circle around the answer. So it doesn't have to be as traditional, but I'll show you how to do the pen. So I've got the pen, so the answer is 1, so I write that there. Or I might do text, and then I might just write. So there's lots of different options you can look at up here. There's a highlighter too, if you'd rather them just highlight. So if I go to the highlighter, then I can pick my color over here. I can pick my thickness, my opacity as well. And so a good friend is someone you can rely on, and then we could just highlight it. So all these different options here for using a worksheet. Now this all applies for your digital worksheets as well. So if you have a digital worksheet that you normally have as PDF on your computer and print to take to a session, you can just open it up and use these annotation tools the exact same way. I also want to show you that I've just done that for these cards as well. So these are just picture cards, and we could annotate on top of those and highlight the words as we say them. So, and this is just a photo, so I would print it to PDF like I showed you, and then bring it up in Adobe Acrobat Reader. So if you're looking at how to print to PDF on your own system, you can always Google how to print to PDF and then put in the system, so like on a Mac or in Windows 10 or on a Chromebook, something like that. And there'll be really detailed step-by-step tutorials on YouTube in case I just went way too fast for you. I'm just kind of going through the basics so you know what to go and search for. Okay, so I do see your questions. We'll get to them in one moment. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to show you is lesson picks. So I'll just look at the question. Okay. So, do you know of any high interest reinforcer games that work for kids under 5? Just off the top of your head, not a board. Oh yes, high interest reinforcer games for under 5. abcyar.com. Make a pizza game, create a car game, make an ice cream game, build a house, build a tree house. There's Christmas trees, obviously for Christmas time. abcyar, it's really great. abcya.com. Yeah, so you would use them as like an alternative to something like Pop Up Pirate or Pop the Pig and things like that. They're really fun and engaging and really good to have short turns so that you're getting good bang for your buck. So, and really good for turn taking because one person might add pepperoni, then another person might add cheese. Really good for language goals, especially when you're building something, because as you can imagine, you know, there's put it on, take it off, all the core vocabulary and giving directions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, really good website. It's a great question. All right, lesson picks. Now, let's quickly take a look at lesson picks. It's only $36 a year. I've used it my entire career. I used to work at a special school and I used it all the time. They have a sound finder. So it is made for all kind of special school type workers, but they know speech therapists use this a lot, and it's made by speech therapists, so they do have a sound finder tool, which is awesome. You can find minimal pairs really easily. You can, for example, you could tell it, I want L words that are CVC, and L is always at the beginning, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through how to do that here. They have great tutorials, which you can see right here, but essentially what you do is just like it says here, you select your pictures from their huge clip art library, you choose a template. They have hundreds of things, like I want these pictures to be a visual schedule, I want these pictures to be a first then, I want these pictures to be an I am working for, I want them to be bingo, I want them to be a board game, I want them to be playing cards, or I have who has, or dominoes. So they have tons of stuff. Obviously the dominoes you need to cut up, so not all of them are going to be applicable, but you can find clip art by searching, or I need to log in, hang on guys. The cool thing about lesson picks is you can actually 100% fully use it for free. It's just whatever you download will have this huge watermark on it, so you can't actually use it in therapy, but it's a great chance to try it all out before you decide if you want to use it. Again, I'm not like affiliated with them, I just really like them. So you can either search for clip art, I'm just going to clear this, you can either search for clip art up here, or you can go look through like all their different categories. They've got categories over here as well, and then they've also got a sharing center where people post what they've made. You know, they've got, oh, these are so good. Let's quickly open one of these. Let's download it. So see, this is the pictures that the person put in their tray, and then they made this. So words and sentences, K, C in the middle. So then you could just get this kind of game, turn on highlighter, and then can you see and find the pictures, and then as you find it, oh, actually that's not going to work. I need to bring up my comment bar. Sorry guys, I'm just going to grab a circle. So let's pretend this is see-through, and you could bring it over and put it over the item or something like that. So Lesson Picks has a sharing center too, where you can see what other people have made, but essentially you put the clip art into your tray. So I'll just quickly, quickly grab some body parts. I'm just gonna grab some, oh, sorry guys, just hit the plus up here. I'm just going to quickly grab some random. Okay, and then you hit create materials, and then you choose what do you want it to be. Picture cards, like there's so much stuff. Look at it all. They've got communication boards. You can make communication boards. They also have templates for like AbleNet buttons, Cheap Talk, like all the different Go Talk overlays, eye gaze frames, fine motor. They've got coloring sheets, lacing cards, all this stuff. So obviously you can't use all of it digitally, but you can just, there's bingo, playing. This is where I live mostly, over here. Adapted board games, and so you could make things that flip inside Caribou, or Guess Who. They're all sized properly. Bingo Dorber pages are great to use. You open them up in Adobe Acrobat Reader, and obviously instead of stamping them, you just create circles. You could just cross off. So many things. So I'm not going to go over through all of this, but just know that there are so many things. You could do a dice rolling grid and then use the digital dice alternative on Toy Theatre. Find the match cards if you want to do, you know, like matching things up. I have, yeah, lots and lots of mazes. Oh, tic-tac-toe, that's really good too to do. Just turn on your annotation tools and just draw an X or an O. What are we looking at? Maze. You could just turn on your annotation tools and draw through the maze. So yeah, it's amazing. So if you're going to just live in one place right now of creating resources, I'd live in the PDF space and just annotate on top of PDFs, because especially if you've got older students who aren't going to need a bunch of other stuff, but also that and websites. I would think that websites and PDFs, if you're just starting out and this is really overwhelming, would be where I'd stay. There's lots of other exciting stuff you can do, which we're going to look at, but that's where I'd probably stay comfortable. I'll just show you ABC here. I think we've looked at it before. See, obviously I use this a lot. They all come up. Make a cake, make a robot, make a cookie. I'm going to choose the cake one. The pizza one's the one we use the most. If a thing comes up saying you need to sign up, just exit out of it. You don't have to sign up on a computer. It's all free to use. And if Adobe Acrobat Reader does if Chrome does this, you just need to click to enable Flash, because it's just like a different enable thing. And again, if my students were watching me do this, it doesn't matter. I just talked to what I was doing. I wouldn't feel bad that they have to watch me accept that. Okay, so we can select a cake. We choose which, so we can do lots of language here, which cake we're going to use. And then, you know, it's nice because it's got lots of different turns. We can choose a color. We can draw on icing. We can put on candles. We can put on letters if we want to. Numbers, for example. We can light the candles, which is fun. Some of these games, like when you make the ice cream, when you've hit done, it shows a video of a monster eating it. You can save the picture. If the kid's like, I really want to be able to have that and show my mum, you can just save it and it'll save as a picture and you can email it home. Or you could print to PDF if you really wanted to. Print to PDF and then you could write on top of it again. So yeah, just like lots of cool little individual games like this that it has of lots of different age groups. It's all Common Core aligned for America. So there's lots of stuff that we probably wouldn't use. But if you go to pre-K, I'd say there'd be a ton of stuff for the young ones. But some of this is very like academic based as opposed to open-ended. So I just like to use the make kind of games. So there, that's that. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the questions. What we're getting to say, a stack of online flashcards by sound that you have next to the games. Could you explain 1 to 2 ways that you would work on all true discrimination between? Okay, that's a really good question, Sally. I will show you that really soon. So you're asking, am I correct that you would ask about having online flashcards? Which we can look at, and then also maybe how you might want to put 2 sets of flashcards beside each other, 2 different PDFs beside each other. I can definitely show you that in a moment. So this is what Google Slides looks like. I just want to point out to you that you can change this is Google Slides, and I would change the page setup to custom and then do I think 9 by 11 is what people normally do. Yeah, so this is now like a paper size. The only reason I'd use a paper size is because I can split screen it. If you're going to do something that fills your entire screen, there's no reason for you to change the size. But now what I could do, if I wanted to, I could bring in my worksheet. So all I did, you guys can't see this, but on my other monitor, I have the picture open and I just dragged and dropped it in. And then we could just put in a text box if we wanted, and just write on top. So there's also this option. And then we can right click and we can, how do I add a slide? Oh, you just hit here. You add a slide. And then, so you could use this just like another piece of paper, and then you could go insert image, and then you can search the web. So with your students, you might say, all right, we need to find something that you eat with, that you find with a knife in the kitchen, and it's got pointy ends. Oh, a fork. Okay, let's find a picture of a fork. And then you just put it in. Or you could obviously use this to make things beforehand, obviously. And you know, you've just made it. You could make an entire set of cards this way and like show this slide for fork, and then the next slide for fan, and the next slide you just add another slide, and now you've got to add in fan. So you can just do this to make your flashcards as an option. Unable to create. Oh, hang on. I needed to delete this stuff first. See if it'll let me now. Insert. Oh, I had to hit insert. Unable to create some images. Why? Sorry, guys. All these things, eh? So I went to image, and then I went search the web. Let's try a different image. Let's try this one. I'm not sure why this isn't working. I'm sorry, guys. I'd probably just get out of this and get back into it again. But you saw me do that one. You can just believe me that it works. If you have pictures on your computer, you can just drag them in as well. But we'll move out of here soon. But I also just want to show you that you can insert shapes as well, just like you would in just like you would in PowerPoint or Word. So you can bring in shapes. So if you had a picture of a board game that you found online by image searching, you could just bring in counters and move this to move through the counters. You can write text in these boxes and make them drag and drop. So there's lots of different ways you can use Google Slides. You can insert videos into here and things like that. But essentially think about it like a bunch of paper. And it's like, now I'm going to add another one and delete this, and I could do something else, so on and so forth. You can change the background and the theme and things like that as well. Okay. So Google Forms, this is kind of, I would say, the easiest way to create an interactive worksheet. So here's an untitled one that I started yesterday, but I'll show you kind of from the beginning how I did this anyway. I just was showing someone how they could make a spelling worksheet. It was a teacher, so you open up to create a new one. I wrote spelling worksheet. I inserted a picture of a cat, wrote spell this, and then the kid can write in here. I can't write in here because I'm editing the worksheet, but then when I want to actually do the worksheet, I can just hit send, hit this link here, and then grab that link, or you can just hit copy and then put that link here, and now I can do the worksheet. Because this is made so that you would generally send the form to a parent, or send the form to, this is made for business, so you might do a sign up form for a seminar or something. So this in this mode, you're creating the form, and then of course you need to hit send or share, and then share the link with yourself by just copy pasting it, so that you can then be the person writing in it as well. So then we can write cat. Now let me show you how I did this, and of course we could add more things. So if we go back to here, and we'll go back to forms. I've linked to this at the bottom of I've linked to forms at the bottom of the notes. I'm going to hit blank, start a new one. I can choose my color scheme, and then this is an untitled question, so it might be like, where would you find this item? And then I might choose a picture, so I can click here, so I can put in a picture. And I'm just going to choose to Google image search. We're just going to stay on the fork bus. Cool. Great. And now I don't want this to be a multiple choice, but you could make it multiple choice. I might just want it to be short answer, or do I want it to be a paragraph where they have to write a long thing? If I do leave it as multiple choice, I'll show you what would happen. I can just put my options in here. Kitchen, bathroom, I'm just hitting enter. Outside, for example. And now I've done that question, I can then just go here and hit plus. And now I'm adding another question, or do I want it to be the same type again? If I want it to be the same type again, I'm assuming I probably can duplicate it. Maybe. I'm not sure though. I'm just going to fix my grammar here. So you can also, in this question here, I can add in a video if I wanted to. So find one on YouTube, right? Or have a URL for a video from somewhere else, and then that will embed the video into here. You can add text, you can add, what else can you add? Images. You can import sections within sections. So you might have a video section and then a picture section, or you might want to separate it out. So this is like section 1 of 2. So this is maybe all the language activities they have to do, and then section 2 might be all the articulation activities they need to do, and you can name it here, see? So I personally don't use this that much, but looking into this, I'm like, this is really cool, and it could be a really great way to send home homework, because what happens is, so if I was to create this and then send this, and then I go to link, and I hit I'm going to shorten the URL because who needs a long URL, and I copied this link and sent it to parents. As they fill it in, I can go to the responses tab, and over here will come in all their responses. So I'd be able to see their homework, which is pretty cool. Or if you don't want to see the responses, that's fine. It's a cool way to send home worksheets that parents can work through with their kids. It's kind of like a quiz, but on steroids, really, or like a worksheet on steroids. So that is Google Forms. Okay. Now, Sally was asking the question about the PDFs, and I think that's a really good one. Did I understand your question right, Sally? Okay, let's have a look at, okay, so I've got, let's go to my articulation cards. We'll just, I didn't have this ready, so I'm just going to quickly download them from TPT. I mean, I have them on my computer, but it's quicker just to do this. This is my no print photo articulation cards. This is just to use as an example, because of course, and you asked about minimal pairs too. Obviously, you could make your own cards, but we're just going to look at what's available. I use these by Stacey Krause for minimal pairs. They're amazing, and it's one PDF page. And then if we open the preview, sorry guys, it's probably quite big. See, this is what it looks like on your computer as well in Adobe Acrobat Reader. And then the kids can tick off the productions, but also, of course, you can use it for auditory discrimination. So you would say fan, and then they tick off the box, which one did they hear, fan or pan. So these are really great for auditory discrimination. She's got all these different phonological processes, and you just, on a computer, it looks like this. And you just click it off, and then when you go back to doing therapy in person, if you have an iPad, you can just open it up in iBooks and use it the exact same way. So that's what I use for minimal pairs. I also have a spinner for minimal pairs. Oh, now I need to work out how to get out of full screen. Oh, there we go. I have a spinner for minimal pairs in my store as well, if your kids would prefer a spinner. And then it will always land on, it's two spinners beside each other. Let's go have a look. But let's have a look at these cards, because you asked it showing two cards beside each other. So, okay, so here is the cards. I'm just going to drag them out into my downloads. Okay, and then I'm going to paste them. So I have two copies. So I'm going to open this one, and then I'm going to open that other one again. Sorry guys, I'm just going to find my downloads now. Oh, they're on my other screen. Okay, so now I have them both open. See the tabs up here? We've got the worksheet from before. I've got this words and sentences. So you can have multiple things open, but don't open up too much because it'll slow things down. But let's pretend that these were two different sets of cards you wanted the student to say. So these are my interactive articulation cards. So they have the tick boxes. But especially if you're doing two students at once, you could grab this and just pull it out, and it will become its own window. I just grabbed it and pulled down, and so you could split screen it and put one on one side and this one on this side. So now, sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of this bar. There we go. So we've now got, like if you're wanting to present two targets at the same time, let's pretend these were two different articulation cards, minimal pair cards, then you've got one on either side. You could do this the same with Google Slides. You could have either on Google Slides, you would just want to put the two pictures beside each other in Google Slides. There's no reason why you need to have just one picture on a page. But if you had two separate windows, just open up two separate tabs in Chrome and make sure they're their own windows by dragging them down like you saw me do in Adobe Acrobat Reader. Open both windows up beside each other like this, and you're now showing your student both sets of targets. So this is how I play games. Let me show you how I play games in therapy. I really want to honor your time, guys, but we're really kind of just in demonstration mode right now. So I'm just going to show you what I think would be helpful. So let's pretend, I'm going to close this one here. Let's just minimize it. Sorry, guys. We'll just minimize it. Now let's go find a game. ABC. Make a cake. We'll go back to make a cake. I would split screen this if we're working on our tick, for example. So pop that over there, bring the game up, and then I'd say, all right, well, before you can choose your cake, we need to say fan 10 times. Yep, and we tick it off 10 times. Caveat, guys, I mostly work on Arctic, so most of my examples are going to be Arctic and or Cass. And then, okay, and now we can pick our cake. So this is really what most of my sessions look like. It's either like this, or I have one of my PowerPoint games open and I have that split screened, or I have my open-ended activity companion split screened. If you guys want, I know a lot of you have been reaching out to me and thanking me for providing these webinars and things, and I'm doing it because I really believe in teletherapy, and I've wanted this to be something that becomes normalized in this country for a long time, because in most other countries it is. But if you guys do want to support me, one way you can support me is going to check out my store. So if you guys would like, we can organize a separate webinar where I kind of go through what's in my store and how you could use it in teletherapy. But I don't want to do that now. I want to honor your time. And so, but just know I've got a bunch of really fun things. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. My shameless plug. So yeah, but most of my sessions look like this, split screened, two things, either my PowerPoint game with some cards, or my PowerPoint game with a with the targets beside it, or just the PowerPoint game that has all the targets included in it, like most of mine do. Or the dice alternative is split screened with the board game. So knowing how to split screen is really helpful, and I hope this is kind of helpful to show you. It's because what I can do is I can give the child mouse access, and so they can build their own cake. They don't have to watch me do it, and so they can control the game on my screen. They can tick off their own productions, and all those kind of things as well. Okay, so is there anything else you guys want me to demonstrate? Pop it in the chat box, please. Or if there's anything you thought I'd go into more detail about that you'd like me to go into more detail about, pop it in the chat box. I'm going to keep an eye on that. While you guys are doing that, though, I'm just going to show you now. The other thing I wanted to demonstrate, I just want to make sure that I have everything. I've said everything I want to say. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to find activities online. If you do want to find activities on Teachers Pay Teachers. So we'll go to the homepage. We're going to search no print articulation. Okay, and then if you've searched for something pretty like vague, then you can go down and you can filter by subject area to speciality, and then you can choose speech therapy. Then if you only want to see things that are free, you can filter by free or under $5, things like that. Remember, this is all in American dollars. And then this is all the people that sell speech therapy resources online. Some of these are mine. These are all the no print speech therapy resources, and most no print things can be used in teletherapy, even though most of us market our stuff on an iPad in the cover, because we know that most people do in-person therapy. So of course we're going to show it in an iPad because most people use it in an iPad. But things are changing right now, and people want to know if they work in teletherapy, and most of them do, and it will say in the description. So like, this is one of mine, and it says down here that it will work for, somewhere down here it'll say it'll work for teletherapy, and I've got your system requirements and how to use them and all the things like that. So on most devices, making it easy. Yeah. So I talk about the devices that it will work on. Oh, PowerPoint. There we go. Things like that. These are one of my more earlier products. My later ones are really specific about whether you can use them in teletherapy or not. Then in people's stores, so this is my store, they also have custom categories. So I've got custom categories for like, goals down here, my product ranges, boom cards, all of my no print, suitable for adults, suitable for smart boards, teletherapy materials, all those kind of things. What I specialize in are PowerPoint games. And then also, so if you're in someone's store, you can also search. So I was like, okay, well, I'm in PowerPoint games and I want a farm theme. So I can just search farm because this kid's really into farm. And then, so now I'm seeing everything that's got the keyword farm in it. That is also a PowerPoint game because it's a category I chose, but you could have done it from the front page. And here are the two PowerPoint games that I have that are farm themed. So if we go back to the front page, or we just take off PowerPoint games as a filter, then it will show us everything to do with a farm that's not a PowerPoint game, but is just everything to do with a farm. So that's kind of how you can search people's individual stores, or you can just search the entire marketplace from the search box up here. Great. All right. So I'm not seeing any other questions come through. Oh, one other thing. You can organize people's stores by most recent or bestseller. They're the two best ones. Ratings, most people don't rate. Most people don't give feedback. Just so you know, you should give feedback because you get credit towards your next purchase. If you give feedback on a paid item, you get a percentage of it back. And then it all adds up, and then you can take it off if you purchase something. So the reality is, this digital products you can use in teletherapy are not as readily available, obviously, because teletherapy is new, as many other printables are. So Teachers Pay Teachers is the best place to find the most all-in-one place, because these are teletherapists that have created resources that they need and that they use. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna check the questions. No more questions. Thank you all for sticking with me. That's all I had for today. I hope this has been... Oh, hang on. Oh, no, wait. There was one more question. Sorry, Kate. Hi, Kate. We went to university together. Do you know if there are many teletherapy providers for people with aphasia? So this one's a hard one, because in America, where most teletherapy is done, they don't often fund it. The insurance companies and stuff. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I've heard. So it's just not as common to be able to for people to do it, but it's definitely possible, like totally possible. I just want to show you TalkPath. Have you seen TalkPath before? Therapy.aphasia.com is awesome. It has a bunch of exercises that you can do, like word repetition, articles, answering questions, describe the picture. So if we open describe the picture, and there's different levels, so like you can change your levels and things like that. This website looks oh that's loud. This looks very different to when I used it, when I was back in aphasia rehab, but just know that that's there. But most of the things when I was doing aphasia rehab were either functional or they were stimulus based, so you could just present your stimuli digitally. I do know that there are full, private practices throughout the globe that do teletherapy practice with very good gains, but I can't talk much to it. Now, with ABCA, do you subscribe or are you a free? No, I just use the free. I don't subscribe. No, I just use the free games. The only reason you subscribe is to get rid of the ads, but I use ad blocker, and all of the ads are pretty, they're all okay for kids anyway, but also if you split screen, they go away because they're all on the sides. So, because you don't even see them really. You only need to subscribe if you want to be able to use the games on an iPad. And so therefore you pay to be able to use them on an iPad. I don't use them on my iPad. I just use my own materials digitally in person on an iPad. Do know that it's possible to mirror your iPad if you have a kid that just loves a certain app, but they won't be able to control the iPad on your screen. I think we talked about that before. You can do it with Reflector 3. It's linked below. I'm just giving you guys a chance if you have any more questions. Okay, also, I believe, have I linked to it in the notes? Let's have a look. Come back. Just a second, guys. I want to have a look at something. Okay, these Facebook groups down here, super helpful. So obviously I can't teach you everything there is to know. I do welcome you to reach out to me, but please, before you reach out to me, make sure you haven't been able to find the information yourselves, because as you can probably imagine, it's a very busy season for me, and I'm happy to help, obviously, but I can't really help every single individual person with all their tech issues. These 3 websites here are great. So there's the Teletherapy Materials Facebook group. I'm one of the moderators over there. So if you ever have trouble with materials, or you want information about materials, or you just want to be able to see all the freebies as they come up, or anything like that, that's all about materials and how to use things digitally, you can come join that Facebook group. This is a teletherapy information group, like basic teletherapy information group. Please go there to ask all of your platform specific questions, or anything that's not to do with materials. If you post in the Teletherapy Materials Facebook group a question like, how do I share my screen in Zoom, we will decline your and delete your comment. Sorry, because it's so busy in there and so full. We need to keep things on track. So and we can't be everyone's tech support. But this place has And you can search these Facebook groups for your answers as well. You can search on the side. So someone else probably has asked the same question you have. Just so you know, do you know if people are allowed? Okay, the LSVT via teletherapy thing would be a question for the, the LSVT people. But I feel like I've heard about this being done by distance. But there would be a lot more to consider, and I'm sure they have guidelines around that, Kate. But that's a really good question about LSVT, and this is just a good question in general, guys. Use your common sense. Evidence-based practice is still a thing, but just because a study has not been done to show that a certain method will not work via teletherapy doesn't mean that it won't work via teletherapy, because all of the research that's coming out where they have chosen a certain approach and then they've done that based on the evidence, adapted it for digital use, they are seeing the same results as in person. But obviously use your common sense. Like if you need like a good, like an LSVT, the ability to know really how loud someone is, you need to think about all those factors. So maybe some approaches may not be wonderful, but LIDCIM, for example, I know a lot of people do LIDCIM via teletherapy. There's lots of approaches, but obviously if you're certified, you need to check with your certification powers that be about whether or not you can still call it that approach if you're doing it over teletherapy. In my opinion, it doesn't mean it's not going to work, but you do just need to check. But yeah, do remember that this is a very valid form of speech therapy input that some people do full time, all day, every day across the world. Great questions, Kate. Thanks. Any other questions, guys? I'm just watching the questions, just in case there's any more. All right. No, I'm not Hannon trained, Kate. So, when it comes, let's have a talk about that though. So, are you Hannon trained? Someone asked, they're certified in Hannon, and it takes two to talk, and I'm not sure if it'd be possible via teletherapy. Let's in general just talk about EI. And remember the value of parent training. So I'm not going to speak to Hannon or anything like that, but early intervention can be really still really effective via teletherapy, especially using a functional parent coaching approach. One thing I really like to use in general, let me show you. These are awesome, and I'm pretty sure she said she's okay with them being shared digitally with parents. SLT scrapbook. Need to remember what all these people's names are. Oh, I put in the wrong thing. Here it is. This is her store. Okay, does she? Yes, she does. Oh, they're right there. Early language handouts. These things are amazing. So she's got, this one's for daily routines. So let me show you. So this is, so I don't do EI via teletherapy, not because I don't want to, but at this stage, most of my EI kids are in person. But she's got these great handouts that go through each strategy. And then for a lot of our parents right now, they may not have time to sit down and do therapy. They're just trying to survive right now. So they've got these really great routines. So some extra information, suggested target words. So this is bath time we're looking at over here. So strategies and for targeting language during bath time. And there's all these ideas. It's just a one pager. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You could just print the one page to PDF and send it to parents. And you might agree with the parent, like, this is what you're going to, the routine you're going to do this week, and this is the strategies you could do. She's got she's got so many routines, hand washing, she lists them all, and she's got her evidence-based references in here as well. And she lists in here like all the different routines. She's also got one, a separate set for toys. So she's got a one pager for cars, a one pager for playing with a ball, a one pager for playing with a doll. I'm just trying to find it. It'll be in here somewhere. Oh, for play. Here it is right here, the top seller. So these are really just so amazing. But don't just send your families the whole packet, like the whole PDF. I don't think that's really fair on her either. I don't think it really respects her terms of use. But you could like find the pages you want to share with the family, print those pages to PDF like I showed you, and then share them. So she's got Play-Doh, blocks, train sets. So this might be a really helpful resource or something like this for your families right now, and a really great way for guided parent training without overwhelming them, because they've got just, you know, that one page to work through that week, as well as the strategies are all listed out on one page, and then there's a one pager for each strategy themselves too. So I really, really like these, and they're by the SLT Scrapbook, and she has said that at this time it's okay to share these with families digitally. Of course, please do consider, if you are buying anything online, the terms of use. So you can't just like buy one copy of things and give it to your entire team as speech therapists. If you buy something, it's one license for you as the therapist and your students on your caseload. You can't then go give it to your best friend who's a speech therapist because they didn't pay for it. So even if it's free, you also need to do this. Send them to the link to get it for free, because as we upload them, update them, if you've downloaded it already for free, you're going to get access to it. Even if one day we make it paid, or even if we decide to add to it and make it even better, you can come back to where you downloaded it and download another copy and have that free version even better. So even if it's a freebie, please don't share it. Please never, ever, ever share things that you've bought from online or downloaded from online, even for free, in any type of like, resource library online or sharing library in a Facebook group, because you are very likely 99% of the time going to be in breach of that author's terms of use if you do that, because you're sharing it with someone without them going through the proper channels to get it. Just a few housekeeping notes. I hope that was helpful as far as early intervention goes. I know I've talked for a very long time. Wow, I've talked for like an hour and a half. I'm so sorry, guys. Thanks for listening. I just want to make sure I answer any of your questions. So feel free. I'm going to give it like 3 more minutes for any more questions to come in. And then we will sign off. And remember that the notes are in the group. The notes are in the event on Facebook. Okay, I haven't seen any other questions come in. I do hope that this was helpful, everybody. Someone said thank you. Thank you. Let's keep talking in the Facebook group about this, and keep helping and supporting each other.